I think we can agree, Stephen A., that we're not talking about LeBron James or Luka Doncic, who are point guards, but they don't guard the other team's guards usually, so let's call them point forwards. We're putting those guys aside. The answer is yes. Because part of this stuff is predicting and trajectory. And as great as Steph Curry has been, Damian Lillard's 2 years younger and has taken the next step. You know, Steph Curry showed the way. But Damian Lillard saw that, and he's shooting from a million miles away and hitting, and is completely unstoppable offensively. And then when you look to this year, not only is his game still ascending, where Curry's has plateaued, but it's ascending, and now he has certain pieces on the team. When you examine these two guys' teams, in fact, Damian Lillard's life is going to be a little easier on the Blazers than Steph Curry's is going to be on the Warriors, I think. And all that means to me, it adds up to, I think, Damian Lillard in this coming season will be the best true, we're not talking about the LeBron and Doncic, point guard in the NBA.
You're wrong, but I respect where you're coming from. Because I love me some Dame Lillard, man. I'm so happy that he got his money. I love the fact that he got that $250 million extension. His agent, Aaron and Eric Goodwin, negotiated the largest contract in NBA history. Major props to them for the job that they've done. They've been exceptional for years. But I tell you something right now. Damian Lillard is a player. He is a winner. He's Mr. Clutch. He's a leader. And he's an incredible individual and a great role model as far as I'm concerned. I got a lot of love for Damian Lillard, but he ain't no Steph Curry. And I'm going to tell you something, Max Kellerman. Damian Lillard averaged 30 this past season. Damian Lillard shot 40% from three-point range last year. Did you know, Max Kellerman, that's the first time Damian Lillard shot 40% from three-point range in his career? Steph Curry did it every year for the first 10 years in his career. He has never shot in less than 42% from three-point range in his career, with the exception of the 20 games that he played after he came off an injury last season. Yeah, that's it. So the first 10 years of his career, he did what Damian Lillard just did for the first time. Now, obviously, that total game doesn't come with that. And we understand how elite, because I think Damian Lillard is one of the great point guards and one of the great scoring point guards the game has ever seen. I think he's destined for the Hall of Fame. He's that special. But what makes Steph Curry special that I don't think you give enough appreciation to, Max Kellerman, along with a lot of NBA players, present and former, by the way, is this one important fact. It's not just the fact that Steph Curry is such a marksman. His movement without the basketball is unreal. He's always on the move. Why is that so important? Because you can't even set your defense right, because you got to know where he's at every single second. Dame has the ball in his hands. It's Dame's that's decided if he's going to shoot or he's going to pass. It's Dame's that's who's deciding whether he's going to shoot or whether somebody else is going to shoot. He's doing all of these things. Even though Steph Curry is your point guard and he brings the ball up the court, he is such a sniper extraordinaire that he instantly gives the ball up and you spend like 60 to 65 to 75% of your offense in terms of that shot clock trying to find him just to get him the ball back. That element right there makes him so profoundly lethal. That's the difference between him and Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard don't move like that without the ball the way Steph Curry does.
Look, we were yelling at each other earlier in the show, and this is a more polite debate because I can't really argue against those points. Steph Curry is special because just because two guys shoot doesn't mean they shoot the same. No one's ever shot like Steph Curry with that kind of mobility coupled with that kind of shooting. The other thing that makes Steph special is the fact that the ball doesn't stick with him, right? Like, it just makes him different. But what I'm saying about Damian Lillard is, as you would say, he's on the come up. Damian Lillard was born with ice water in his veins. You know, Steph Curry had to get there. Steph Curry against LeBron James, not saying Damian Lillard's always been perfect in the playoffs. Drew Holiday did a number on him, but and team defense did too, as he points out, as Lillard points out. But Steph Curry was running the best half-court offense in the history of basketball, couldn't score in the last 4.5 minutes in a Game 7 at home. in a 73-win team and lost the finals. That's not Damian Lillard to me, Stephen A. Damian Lillard was born with the clutch gene, and he's 2 years younger and still getting better. Here's the other thing. Steph Curry tries to play defense. He's just not very good at it, but he is a guy who's present defensively. Damian Lillard, to me, went from a guy who didn't play defense, he wasn't even really trying, it looked to me early in his career, to a pretty good defender. I actually think Damian Lillard is an underrated defender right now, especially in high-leverage situations.
Obviously, you got to take defense into consideration, and nobody is going to accuse Steph Curry of being a stout or an outstanding defender. We're not going to go that far. From the offensive standpoint, I will tell you this. There is not a guard in the NBA that I would rather have than Steph Curry. And that includes Damian Lillard. And I love me some Damian Lillard. But Steph Curry is the greatest shooter I've ever seen in my life. And you literally have to pick him up from half court. As a result, it stretches out defenses and opens the floor for Golden State's offense because of what Steph Curry brings to the table. And the fact that he's been able to do what he has been doing without the services of Klay Thompson really, really cements his greatness as far as I'm concerned. And then we look at it right now, what is the dude averaging? He's averaging 30.7 points per game on 48.9% shooting from the field, 42.2% from three-point range. Steph Curry, this is who we're talking about here. He's a career 43.4% shooter from three-point range. He's the greatest shooter God ever created. I don't care what anybody says. I've never seen anybody like him. Spot-up shooters, you're right, jump shooters, dudes that are on the move, dudes that are standing still. None of them can do it all like Steph Curry can do in terms of creating his own jump shot. I've never seen it in my life. And because of that is why I'd say he's the best guard, because people can't do what he can do. No matter if they can score 30, they could average 30, 35 or whatever. They can't spread the floor and open the offense the way that he can outside of maybe Damian Lillard. He's the only one in the conversation. But I still wouldn't put him ahead of Steph Curry as a shooter. And because that's the reality of the situation, I would tell you that Steph Curry's the best guard. But he's certainly not a leading candidate for MVP because Golden State is not winning enough games.
If he was the best guard, they'd be winning more games because Damian Lillard's team was winning games even when he was the only dude on the team. They were winning, Stephen A.
Matt, he was never the only dude on the team. You see Portland's roster compared to Golden State's?
Well, Golden State, Wiseman wound up getting hurt, and he's young, but he's athletic. Draymond Green. It's not like they had nobody. In fact, they put the Oubre and guys that they picked up. I was the one saying I didn't think they had enough shooting. You and I debated this. I didn't think to start the season they had enough shooting. But his team is not winning as much as Lillard's. Now, I'll say this. What am I going to sit here and pretend Damian Lillard's way better than Steph Curry? Of course not. It's close. Steph Curry is the greatest shooter of all time, Stephen. I don't think anyone disputes that for the reasons you point out. It's not just that he can shoot in a variety of spot up. He can get his off the dribble, whatever you want him to do from a million miles away. He's the greatest shooter ever. Until it matters most. He had a great series, especially when it mattered most, in that final series against Toronto. Until then, I did not consider him a great shooter in the finals when it mattered most. We haven't seen Damian Lillard in that situation yet, but as we said, he's the most clutch player in the NBA. Undisputed, by the way. No one really disputes it. Health. No one really disputes it, and that's with eyeballs and stats, right? That's Lillard. So if it's close in a lot of respects, and one dude's that much more clutch, and one dude's team is winning more, though they fill similar roles, I find it hard to argue Steph over Damian Lillard at this moment. Now, what about James Harden this year? I'm not going to say he's ahead in the MVP race because he missed so much time. But when he was on the court, I thought he was a more effective guard than Steph Curry. I'm not slighting Steph. Steph is a miraculous player. But Harden was controlling the game from the point guard position, unlike almost anyone has ever controlled the game this year. I mean, he's had MVP seasons and caliber seasons in the past, Stephen A., but I've never seen him play like he was playing this year. By the way, no KD, sometimes no Kyrie, still beating all kinds of teams. I think that you have to put this season Harden ahead of Steph. I would put this season close, but Damian Lillard ahead of Steph. And that's to say nothing of point forwards. You know, they're not little like Steph, but they basically fulfill the same responsibilities in the offense. Like, who's the greatest point guard of all time, really? LeBron James, if you consider him a point guard, which he kind of is nowadays. What's Luka Doncic nowadays? Sort of a point guard. You want to call him a point forward, okay. But it's not a point forward like Anthony Mason or Scottie Pippen were once point forwards. It's a different kind of animal. So I put those guys ahead of Steph, too, let alone Lillard and Harden this season.
Well, first of all, the question wasn't who's having the best season. Because if I'm looking at the best season, I'm not going to just look at numbers. I'm going to look at effectiveness. I'm going to look at what you're working with, what you're working against, et cetera, et cetera. James Harden had at least Kyrie on the court or KD. Certainly not both of them, but he had one of them. That's number one. When you look at Damian Lillard, Robert Covington is no scrub. Enes Kanter is no scrub. Gary Trent Jr. was no scrub before he was traded. Obviously, Carmelo Anthony is there. So when you look at some of the pieces that he had in place, compared to what Steph Curry had in place, I'd say they're a little bit better than what Steph Curry was working with on the offensive side of the ball in Golden State this year. But I'm not talking about who's having the best season because, again, I think that when you look at Damian Lillard, you look at the James Harden, those guys, they were MVP candidates. You're not going to call Steph Curry that when they've been up and down in Golden State all season long. And Klay Thompson is chewing them out because they lose in a game to Toronto by 60. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. But when you look in overall the general question about the best guard in the NBA, I'm the one that brought up the discussion is that, listen, Irvin Magic Johnson by far is considered the greatest point guard to have ever played the game. People like Michael Jordan and others have Magic Johnson number one, Isaiah Thomas number two. And I'm the one that brought up, when are we going to put Steph Curry into the conversation? Because of the different dynamic he brings to the equation as a point guard, not just with his shooting ability, with the dribble or off the dribble, standing still on the move or whatever. It's his movement without the basketball. It's the fact that he creates havoc.